Listen to me very carefully, because what I'm about to tell you could save your marriage, or at the very least, save you years of misery and a fortune in legal fees. I've spent the last 2 decades watching marriages die. Not from affairs, not from addiction, not from any of the dramatic reasons you see in movies. Most marriages die from something far more insidious. Something so subtle that couples never see it coming until they're sitting across from me, dividing up their lives like a yard sale. In 90% of these cases, both people are completely shocked. They'll sit in my office and say, "I don't understand how we got here. We were happy." No, you weren't. You just didn't know how to recognize the signs. I'm about to expose the single most destructive force in modern relationships. Something that's probably happening in your relationship right now as you watch this video. Something that starts innocent, feels justified, and ends up being the silent assassin of love. If this video saves even one marriage, hit that like button right now. And comment below with one word, what you think destroys most relationships. Let's see if you can guess what I'm about to reveal. After handling thousands of divorce cases, reviewing hundreds of hours of depositions, and listening to countless stories of relationships gone wrong, I can tell you there's one pattern that shows up in almost every failed marriage. It's not cheating, it's not money problems, it's not even falling out of love. It's emotional accounting. Every single day, without realizing it, you and your partner are keeping score. Not the obvious score of who takes out the trash or who pays the bills. I'm talking about a deeper, more toxic accounting system that most people don't even know exists. You're keeping track of who sacrificed more, who gave up more, who's trying harder, who cares more, who's been more patient, who's been more understanding, who's been more forgiving, who's been more supportive. And here's the devastating part. You're both keeping different books, using different accounting methods, counting different things, and coming to completely different conclusions about who owes what. This emotional ledger becomes the silent killer of your relationship. Both of you think you're losing. Let me give you a real example. Last month, I had a couple in my office, married 15 years, 2 kids, beautiful house, successful careers. They sat there telling me they just grew apart. But when I dug deeper, here's what I found. She had been keeping track of every time he chose work over family events, every missed dinner, every late night, every weekend at the office. In her ledger, she was the one sacrificing her career ambitions to be present for their children while he pursued his selfish goals. He had been keeping track of every financial decision he made for the family's benefit. Every luxury he denied himself, every vacation he didn't take with friends, every expensive hobby he gave up. In his ledger, he was the one sacrificing his personal happiness to provide financial security while she spent freely and criticized his work ethic. Same marriage, same 15 years. Completely different accounting systems. Both convinced they were the victim. Both absolutely certain the other person was selfish and ungrateful. Pause right now and think, what's on your emotional ledger? What sacrifices have you made that you don't think your partner appreciates? Comment below if you recognize this pattern in your own relationship. Let me paint you a detailed picture of how this accounting system operates in the shadows of your daily life. Tuesday night. You come home from work, exhausted. Your partner's in the kitchen, also exhausted, making dinner. You collapse on the couch, just for a minute, just to decompress. You pull out your phone to scroll through news, trying to transition from work mode to home mode. In that moment, your partner makes a mental note. I'm cooking dinner while they're relaxing and scrolling through their phone. They don't even ask if I need help. They just assume I'll handle it. You make a mental note. I've been dealing with difficult clients all day, working to provide for this family, and I can't even have 5 minutes to decompress without feeling guilty. They don't appreciate the stress I'm under. 2 completely different entries and 2 completely different ledgers. Both of you just added to your resentment account, but it doesn't stop there. Your partner serves dinner and mentions that your child needs new soccer cleats. You sigh, not because you don't want to buy the cleats, but because you're mentally calculating the budget impact after the car repair bill last week, your partner's ledger. They sighed when I mentioned our child's needs. They make me feel guilty for spending money on our kids. They act like providing for our family is a burden. Your ledger. They don't understand the financial pressure I'm under. They think money just appears. They don't see me lying awake at night worrying about our retirement savings, the mortgage, the kids' college funds. This happens dozens of times every single day, in tiny moments, in micro interactions, in split-second decisions about who does what, who gives what, who sacrifices what. Your partner loads the dishwasher and thinks, I always clean up after dinner. They eat and disappear. You don't notice because you took out the trash yesterday and you're thinking, I always handle the outdoor chores and maintenance. They don't see half of what I do. Later that night, your partner initiates a conversation about their day, but you're tired and give short responses. Their ledger. They never really listen when I talk. They don't care about my experiences. Your ledger. They always want to talk when I'm exhausted. They don't respect my need to decompress. You both feel underappreciated. You both feel like you're giving more than you're getting. You both feel like the other person doesn't see your contributions. And you're both absolutely convinced that you're right. Once this emotional accounting system takes hold, your relationship stops being a partnership and becomes a courtroom. Every conversation becomes a negotiation. Every disagreement becomes a trial. Every small frustration becomes evidence for your case. You stop being lovers and start being attorneys, each building a case against the other. You collect evidence of their failures. You document their shortcomings. You prepare your arguments for why you're the better person, the more generous partner, the one who's been wronged. I see this every single day. Couples who sit across from each other in my office, both convinced they're the victim, both armed with years of evidence about how the other person failed them, both absolutely certain that they gave more than they received. The wife will say, "I sacrificed my career for our family. I gave up my dreams, my ambitions, my independence. I've been the one managing the household, organizing the kids' schedules, maintaining our social relationships, and he thinks working late a few nights a week is sacrifice?" The husband will say, "I've worked 60-hour weeks for 20 years to give her the lifestyle she wanted. I've never taken a guy's trip, never bought the car I wanted, never pursued hobbies because every dollar went to the family, and she thinks I don't sacrifice." And you know what? They're usually both right, because when you're keeping score in a relationship, everybody loses. But here's the most insidious part. This accounting system changes how you interpret everything your partner does. When they do something nice, you don't see generosity. You see them trying to balance their ledger. When they apologize, you don't see remorse. You see them trying to avoid consequences. When they show affection, you don't see love. You see manipulation. You start viewing every act of love through the lens of debt and credit. Every gesture becomes transactional. Every kindness becomes suspect. Think about your own relationship. When did you last give your partner the benefit of the doubt about something? If you can't remember, that's a red flag. Comment "red flag" if this hit close to home. It's not fair. Those 3 words have probably destroyed more marriages than infidelity and financial problems combined. Because here's the thing about fairness in relationships. It's impossible to measure and toxic to pursue. Fair according to whom? Fair based on what criteria? Fair considering which factors? Fair over what time period? Let me give you some examples of how the fairness trap destroys relationships. You think it's unfair that you gave up career advancement opportunities to support their career growth. They think it's unfair that they carry the financial pressure and stress of being the primary breadwinner while you get to pursue your passions without the weight of providing for the family. You think it's unfair that you handle most of the daily parenting responsibilities, the school pickups, the doctor appointments, the homework supervision. They think it's unfair that you get all the quality bonding time with the kids while they're relegated to being the weekend parent who only gets evenings and weekends. You think it's unfair that you manage all the emotional labor in the relationship, remembering birthdays, maintaining friendships, organizing family events, keeping track of everyone's needs. They think it's unfair that you control all these decisions and social obligations and then criticize how they participate. You think it's unfair that you always initiate physical intimacy in your relationship. They think it's unfair that you make sex feel like an obligation or a performance metric rather than a natural expression of connection. The pursuit of fairness in marriage is like trying to measure love with a calculator. It can't be done, and attempting it will drive you insane. But here's what's really happening when you focus on fairness. You're turning your relationship into a business transaction. You're saying, "I gave you X, so you owe me Y." You're treating love like a commodity that can be traded, measured, and accounted for. Love doesn't work that way. Partnership doesn't work that way. Marriage doesn't work that way. Once the emotional accounting system takes hold, something devastating happens to your communication. You stop talking to each other and start talking at each other. You stop trying to understand and start trying to be understood. Every conversation becomes a closing argument. You're not sharing your feelings anymore. You're presenting your case. You're not listening to your partner. You're preparing your rebuttal. Let me show you how this plays out in real conversations. You always leave your dishes in the sink. This isn't really about dishes. This is you presenting evidence of their inconsideration, their lack of respect for your shared space, their pattern of leaving you to clean up after them. You never ask about my day. This isn't really about your day. This is you presenting evidence of their self-centeredness, their lack of interest in your life, their failure to be an engaged partner. I can't believe you forgot our anniversary. This isn't really about the anniversary. This is you presenting evidence that you're not a priority, that your relationship doesn't matter to them, that they don't value what you've built together, and your partner isn't hearing your pain or your frustration. They're hearing an attack. They're hearing criticism. They're hearing evidence being presented against them in the trial of their character. So they do what any good defendant would do. They mount a defense. I don't always leave dishes in the sink. What about last Tuesday when I cleaned the entire kitchen? I do ask about your day. You're the one who never wants to talk when you get home. I didn't forget our anniversary. I was planning something special, but I wanted it to be a surprise. Your kitchen table becomes a courtroom, and you're both the prosecutor and the defendant in each other's cases. The tragedy is that underneath these prosecutorial communication patterns, both people are usually trying to express the same fundamental need. I need to know that I matter to you. I need to know that you see my efforts. I need to know that you value our relationship. But instead of expressing that need directly, you present evidence of how they've failed to meet it. Instead of asking for what you want, you prosecute them for not giving it. Let me tell you the warning signs that a marriage is in trouble. Not the obvious ones like cheating or constant fighting, the subtle ones, the ones that slip by unnoticed until it's too late. Early warning signs. You stop giving each other the benefit of the doubt. When your partner is late, you assume inconsideration instead of traffic. When they're quiet, you assume they're angry instead of tired. When they disagree with you, you assume disrespect instead of a different perspective. You start keeping mental lists of their failures. You remember every time they disappointed you, but forget every time they came through. You catalog their mistakes, but dismiss their efforts. You begin to feel like you're walking on eggshells around certain topics. You start avoiding conversations about money, sex, parenting, or future plans because you know they'll lead to conflict. Middle warning signs. You stop being curious about each other. You stop asking questions because you think you already know the answers. You stop sharing because you assume they won't understand or won't care. You start living parallel lives in the same house. You both have your routines, your responsibilities, your separate spheres of influence. You coexist instead of connecting. You begin to feel more like roommates than lovers, more like business partners than best friends, more like coworkers than soulmates. You find yourself fantasizing about life without your partner, not necessarily with someone else, but just without the constant tension and disappointment of your current relationship. Critical warning signs. You stop trying to change their mind about anything. You give up on trying to help them see your perspective because you've concluded they don't care about your feelings. You start making major decisions independently. You stop consulting them about purchases, career moves, or lifestyle changes because you assume they'll either object or not care. You find yourself actively avoiding time alone together. Date nights feel forced. Conversations feel strained. Physical intimacy becomes rare or mechanical. You begin to feel relief when they're not around. Business trips, nights out with friends, or solo activities start feeling like escapes rather than separations. If any of these warning signs resonated with you, comment warning sign below. Recognition is the first step toward change. When couples sit in my office getting divorced, I often feel like I'm performing an autopsy on their relationship. And in almost every case, the cause of death is the same. They stopped being on the same team somewhere along the way. They shifted from us against the world to me against you. They stopped seeing their partner as their ally and started seeing them as their opponent. They stopped working together to solve problems and started blaming each other for causing them. Let me share a real example. I had a couple, both doctors, married 12 years, 2 children. To outsiders, they had it all. Successful careers, beautiful home, well-adjusted kids. She said, I gave up my research career to have more family-friendly hours. I handle all the household management, kid schedules, and social obligations. He gets to be the hero, saving lives while I'm dealing with mundane daily logistics. He said, I work nights and weekends in a high-stress environment to maximize our income. I sacrifice sleep and personal time to provide financial security. She chose pediatrics because it was easier, then criticizes me for working harder. The autopsy revealed that they had spent years building cases against each other instead of building a life together. They had stopped seeing their different contributions as complementary and started seeing them as evidence of the other person's selfishness. This shift is so gradual, so subtle, that most couples don't even notice it happening. They wake up one day and realize they're living with a stranger, someone they used to love, used to trust, used to enjoy spending time with, but that person didn't disappear overnight. The relationship died a slow death by 1,000 small betrayals of partnership. So what's the solution? How do you save a marriage that's been poisoned by emotional accounting and killed by scorekeeping? Brutal honesty. Not about your partner's failures, but about your own accounting system. Step 1. Admit you're keeping score. You have to admit that you've been keeping score. You have to acknowledge that you've been building a case against your partner. You have to confess that you've been more focused on being right than being happy. This is harder than it sounds because your brain will resist it. Your ego will insist that you're not keeping score, you're just recognizing patterns. You're not building a case, you're just remembering facts. You're not trying to be right, you're just trying to be heard. But if you're honest with yourself, you'll recognize that you have been keeping track. You have been collecting evidence. You have been more interested in proving your point than in solving the problem. Step 2. Acknowledge the damage. You have to acknowledge that this accounting system has damaged your relationship. It's created distance between you and your partner. It's poisoned your ability to see their good intentions. It's turned you into adversaries instead of allies. This requires taking responsibility for your part in the relationship's problems. Not taking blame for everything, but acknowledging that your scorekeeping has contributed to the dysfunction. Step 3. Forgive the debt. This is the hardest part. You have to forgive the emotional debt. You have to close the books. You have to stop collecting evidence and start collecting moments. This doesn't mean you ignore problems or accept poor treatment. It means you address issues as they arise instead of storing them up as ammunition for future arguments. It means you give your partner the benefit of the doubt. It means you assume positive intent. It means you remember that you're on the same team, fighting the same battles, trying to build the same life. Step 4. Change your accounting system. Instead of keeping track of what you're not getting, start keeping track of what you are getting. Instead of noticing their failures, start noticing their efforts. Instead of remembering their mistakes, start remembering their kindnesses. This requires rewiring your brain. You have to train yourself to be a professional noticer of good things instead of a professional collector of grievances. Step 5. Communicate differently. Stop presenting evidence and start expressing needs. Instead of, you never help with the dishes, try, I would really appreciate help with cleanup after dinner. Instead of, you always choose work over family, try, I miss spending time with you and would love to find ways to connect more. This feels vulnerable because you're asking for what you want instead of prosecuting them for not giving it. But vulnerability is what creates connection, not prosecution. If you want to save your relationship, you need to have what I call the reset conversation. It's the most important conversation you may ever have with your partner. Here's how to approach it. Choose a time when you're both relaxed and won't be interrupted. Don't have this conversation when you're angry, hurt, or in the middle of a conflict. Say, I need to talk to you about something important. I've been doing some thinking about our relationship, and I've realized that I've been keeping score of things in a way that's not healthy for us. I want to talk about how we can both stop doing that and start being better teammates. I want to admit that I've been keeping track of things in our relationship. Who does what? Who sacrifices what? Who tries harder? I've been building a case in my head about how I give more than I get, and I think you might be doing the same thing. I don't think either of us means to do it, but I think it's damaging our connection. I realize that this scorekeeping has made me focus more on what you're not doing than on what you are doing. It's made me assume negative intent instead of giving you the benefit of the doubt. It's turned us into opponents instead of teammates, and I don't want to do that anymore. I want us both to agree to stop keeping score. I want us to forgive whatever emotional debt we think the other person owes us and start fresh. I want us to focus on building our relationship instead of building cases against each other. I'm committed to giving you the benefit of the doubt, to noticing your efforts instead of just your failures, and to expressing my needs directly instead of keeping track of when you don't meet them. I'm hoping you're willing to do the same. This isn't easy. Your brain will resist it. Your ego will fight it. Every fiber of your being will want to present one more piece of evidence, make one more argument, prove one more point about how you've been wronged. Don't. Stop keeping score. Stop collecting evidence. Stop building your case. Start building your relationship instead. Saving your marriage isn't about one big conversation or one dramatic gesture. It's about changing your daily practices. It's about rewiring your brain to notice what's working instead of what's not working. Morning practice. Every morning, before you interact with your partner, take 30 seconds to set an intention. Today I will notice one thing they do well. Today I will give them the benefit of the doubt. Today I will express appreciation instead of criticism. Evening practice. Every evening, think of 3 things your partner did that day that you appreciated. They don't have to be big things. Maybe they made coffee, maybe they asked about your day, maybe they handled a phone call you didn't want to deal with. Weekly practice. Once a week, honestly assess whether you've been keeping score. Ask yourself, what resentments am I carrying? What evidence have I been collecting? What assumptions have I been making about their intentions? Every day, you have to make a choice. Will you be your partner's prosecutor or their advocate? Will you look for evidence of their failure or evidence of their effort? Will you remember their mistakes or their kindnesses? The couples who make it are the ones who become professional noticers of the good things. They catch their partner doing things right. They acknowledge efforts, not just results. They express gratitude for ordinary kindnesses. Comment, professional noticer. If you're committed to changing how you see your partner's efforts. Listen, I'm not a marriage counselor. I'm not a relationship coach. I'm the guy you come to see when it's too late for counseling and coaching. I'm the guy who handles the aftermath of failed relationships. And I'm telling you this because I've seen what happens when people ignore these warning signs. I've seen what happens when couples let emotional accounting destroy their partnership. I've seen the devastation, the regret, the pain that comes from letting scorekeeping kill love. Don't be another statistic. Don't be another case file. Don't let your relationship die from the slow poison of resentment and scorekeeping. If you recognize yourself in this video, if you see your relationship in these patterns, do something about it now. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when things get really bad. Now, have that reset conversation. Stop keeping score. Start being teammates again. Your marriage can be saved. Your relationship can be rebuilt. Your partnership can be restored, but only if you stop being your partner's prosecutor and start being their advocate. Only if you stop keeping score and start keeping faith. The choice is yours. The time is now. Don't let your love become another casualty of emotional accounting. Don't let your partnership become another case study in how good people can destroy good relationships by focusing on the wrong things. Choose love. Choose partnership. Choose to stop keeping score. If this video opened your eyes to something you needed to see, smash that like button. And tell me in the comments, what's one thing you're going to stop keeping score of in your relationship? What's one way you're going to start being your partner's advocate instead of their prosecutor? Let's start the healing right here, right now. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. Subscribe for more brutal truths about relationships. And remember, the best time to fix your marriage was yesterday. The second best time is right now. Because in the end, the only score that matters is whether you're both winning together.